clear, definite New Testament quotations from the Apocrypha by Jesus or the apostles.
Jesus and the apostles didn't believe this was part of the canon. They're not quoted as scripture in the New Testament.
Jesus did not recognize the Apocrypha as being scripture. The New Testament nowhere validates these Old Testament apocryphal books. What is very interesting is that out of the many references in the New Testament back to the Old Testament, there is not one single reference to something in the Apocrypha. Someone who has counted has said that there are 263 quotations and 370 allusions in the Old Testament that are found in the New Testament, and not one of them validates or in any sense gives credibility to the Apocrypha.
And so Jesus often directly quoted the Old Testament, giving it validity as being the Word of God. He accepted it as the Word of God. He accepted these Old Testament canonical books as being the Word of God, and never quotes the Apocryphal books.
This is really interesting. Check this out. I have here the Geneva Bible. This is the 1560 edition of the Geneva Bible. This is what the Pilgrims used. And the Bible of the Protestant Reformation. And this is interesting. This is in the book of Matthew, chapter 23. And it says in verse 37, Jesus is talking. He says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent to thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, as the hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your habitation shall be left unto you desolate. Now notice how there's a marginal note right here, and when you look it up in the margin, it references the book of 2nd Esdras. Now, it references 2nd Esdras chapter 1 verse 30, which, believe it or not, is actually one of the apocryphal books. And keep in mind, the apocryphal books are in the Greek Septuagint. Now, in the Geneva Bible, which the Pilgrims used, their table of contents included that apocryphal section. The whole Bible included that apocryphal section. And so did the King James Bible, by the way. And the book of 2nd Esdras is one of those apocryphal books. And if you were to look it up, just for the sake of reading, I have here this is the King James Apocryphal, authorized King James version of the Apocrypha. And I'm just going to open it up in here just because it's easier to read. But if you look this up, the second book of Esdras, here we go, look at that. Verse 30. I gathered you together as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings. I gathered you together as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings. But now what shall I do unto you? I will cast you out from my face. Now, down here in verse 33, look at what it says. Thus says the Almighty Lord, your house is desolate. I will cast you out as the wind doth stubble. Which is the exact thing that Jesus had said in Matthew 23. Matthew 23:37. The very next thing Jesus said right down here in verse 38. Behold, your habitation shall be left unto you desolate. It appears to me that Jesus is quoting directly from 2nd Esdras. Well, here's what's interesting. Not only does it appear that Jesus is quoting from 2nd Esdras, here's where it gets really good. In Esdras 7, chapter 28, God sends an angel to Ezra. By the way, Esdras is the same as Ezra. They both mean the same thing. Well, we got this angel speaking to Ezra. Notice how he says in verse 3, he says, "And I said, speak on, my God." So God is speaking to Ezra through this angel. This gets really interesting. So God is speaking to Ezra. He says, "Behold, the time shall come that these tokens which I have told thee shall come to pass. And the bride shall appear, and she coming forth shall be seen, that now is withdrawn from the earth. And whosoever is delivered from the foresaid evils shall see my wonders." Now this is interesting. This is God speaking to Ezra. And Ezra lived about 400 years before Jesus. Okay, he lived during the Persian Empire about 400 years before Christ. Look at what he says here. This is God speaking to Ezra. Verse 28. "For my son, Jesus, shall be revealed." This is God speaking to Ezra 400 years before Jesus was born. And God says to Ezra, "For my son Jesus shall be revealed with those that be with him. And they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. After these years shall my son Christ die, and all men that have life." So God is speaking to Ezra, and he says that his son is named Jesus. And he says in 400 years, which Ezra lived 400 years before Christ, he says, "After these years, my son, Christ, will die." So the book of 2nd Ezra is making it crystal clear that God has a son. His name is Jesus, and he's the Christ. And 400 years after Ezra, he's going to die. That's probably the clearest messianic prophecy that I've ever seen. And this Geneva Bible, which the Pilgrims used ever since 1560, the Pilgrims brought it to America in 1620, and their Bible in Matthew 23:37 has Jesus quoting the book of 2nd Esdras. You know, people say Jesus never quoted the apocryphal books. Yeah, he did. He quoted directly from it. And that very same book of 2nd Esdras clearly speaks of Jesus. God speaking that Jesus is the Christ. That's pretty amazing. It's in the King James Apocrypha. Now I also have over here the 1611 King James Version. This is the 400-year anniversary edition. This is a photocopied replica of the King James Bible. And this has the same thing in it, if you look it up. So this is an exact photocopy replica of the King James Bible, the 1611 King James Bible, which included the apocryphal books. In verse 37 it says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as the hen gathereth her chickens under her wings." And notice how even the King James Bible, look, there it is. Notice how it references, now it says 4 Esdras, and the reason why it says 4 Esdras is because in the apocryphal sections of the King James and the Geneva Bible, 4 Esdras is listed as 2nd Esdras, even though it's technically 4 Esdras. It's a little bit complicated, but so both the King James Bible and the Geneva Bible have Jesus quoting an apocryphal book, and that apocryphal book clearly has God saying that Jesus is his son. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a prophecy that clear before. Look at that. 2nd Esdras 7:28. "For my son Jesus shall be revealed with those that will be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. After these years shall my son Christ die, and all men that have life." And that's amazing. I mean, Ezra is telling him that he's going to send his son in 400 years. And Ezra lived 400 years before Christ. He lived during the Persian Empire, which is about 400 years before Christ. You know, the Greeks defeated the Persians about 330 BC. So, people say Jesus never quoted the Apocryphal books. Yeah, he did. He quoted this one. And this has one of the most clearest messianic prophecies I've ever seen. So, and this was in the Greek Septuagint. So it's no wonder that the Jews wanted to take this book out. They didn't just take out words and phrases. They took out whole entire books. And they took them out for a reason. I just bet you this reason right here is probably one of the biggest reasons they took this out. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.